for motherhood, just wanting to be a mother, feeling like a girl who has it all. There was still something that was missing, and that missing component in my life was motherhood. And so as my husband and I started to conceive a child or wanting to have a child, we realized that I had an issue with infertility. And so we went to infertility specialist after infertility specialist, and I was finally able to conceive my daughter. But right after I had my daughter, something strange really happened. This type A personality, valedictorian, corporate executive woman who had it all together, seemed to be a little bit too smart for my very own good. I remember the first week I was home, I literally went over the edge from sleep deprivation. There are 168 hours in a week, and I had slept less than 10 hours after 7, 8, 9 days straight. And after going over the deep end, my family actually committed me to a mental hospital.
So let's back up a minute. So what do you mean going over the deep end? I mean, you're home, you've been living your dreams, and then you've got this incredible new baby, and you're exhausted, of course, all new moms are, and you had all these hours, but what does it look like, and what did it feel like when you were faced with over the deep end? I mean, to be committed in the hospital. Tell us what that was like.
I think what it looked like was here I am, and you know that no matter what you go through, Bellamy, the real you is always buried deep inside. And so in the midst of all the confusion and the anxiety and the postpartum depression and the lack of remembering who I was or recalling that I was a mother, there was still something inside of me that let me know something wasn't quite right. And instead of submitting to the doctors, I was trying to figure it all out. I was staying up and I was doing things that were irrational and hiding in the attics and jumping out of moving cars and physically attacking my husband and my father and just could not quite seem to get it together. But I think the defining moment I remember in that experience before I went into the hospital was staying in the shower for 14, 15 hours and just crying a river of tears. I kid you not, this is so true. I cried so much. I know I must have lost 5 or 10 pounds on that day. And I remember just feeling like a bag of bones and looking in the mirror and saying, God, what has happened? And just yearning and wanting my life back. But at that time, I was just too ill to do it myself. And so my family committed me to a mental hospital. And while I was in there, I told you it was really tough. I can't explain the experience. It was such an out-of-body experience. The only thing I can tell people is that you can look at yourself in the mirror and recognize yourself, but it's not really you. But something deep down inside, there was a fight in me, and there was a yearning in me to want to come back to the life that I knew before I actually had the postpartum.
You know, Nikki, is it possible that, because in the workshops and the courses we do at Live a Choice and the coaching work we do, from many times we come up against women and men that have faced those moments where it just didn't look like possible to move forward. You don't know who you are. You don't know what direction to turn. And, oftentimes what they'll discover is that when such a dramatic change, I mean, you went through infertility, you went through, I'm assuming you had to go through some of the drug hormone process in order to conceive, and then
yes.
You do, right?
Yes.
And then you go through 9 months of this euphoric joy of, wow, we're finally going to get that baby. Mm-hmm. And the baby comes, and then the world begins. Different. It's a different world.
Yes.
All of a sudden you're faced with looking at, I used to laugh and say, now that I'm a mother of 4 and 5 grandchildren, I used to laugh and say that faced with 18 years, but I think you're faced with the rest of your life, that there's another human being that somehow, some way, you're responsible for the impact, or at least a sense of that. Did you have that? Did you have any of that if you got home with the baby?
I think I had a little bit of that, but I think it was more of me being such a smart, independent person, having to submit and yield to other people. And I think that was the hardest thing for me, learning that if I was going to recover, that I wasn't myself and that I needed to depend on someone else. And I think that was the hardest part for me, was to say that it's okay to feel the way that I'm feeling. It's a natural hormonal imbalance. With the medication and rest, I'll be okay. So I think during the first weeks and stages, my family and I, we were actually in denial to what was actually happening to me.
Well, I think you said some really key and important things, because when you speak about having to, you're the type A, go for it, be in the boardroom, make it happen, good grades, CPA, all of that bundle, and you've spent your entire life in a pathway of success and moving on to the next pillar. And you're right, Nicole. It was time that you couldn't conquer it all on your own anymore. You needed help. And what was it like for you in the process of surrendering to that?
It was tough. It was really tough, and I thank God for my family. I want to say here that love is so powerful. If there's someone who's listening, or someone who knows someone who's battling with depression, cancer, whatever it is that they're battling, love is so powerful. I have no doubt, Beverly, I believe with every fiber of my being, if I did not have a loving family, you would have never met me, and I would have still been in that hospital today. Love
if
is
you
so
had
powerful.
somebody to get you there.
Exactly.
It's even
powerful.
Yeah, it's even in the love of the family, from the family that supported you to get the help and get you taken care of. So how long were you in the hospital, Nikki?
I was there for 4 weeks, and during that experience, I remember vaguely the first couple days I was there, all I did was sleep. I mean, I must have slept probably 48 hours straight. They heavily medicated me and sedated me because they just wanted my mind and my hormones to just rest. And then I remember as I was coming to myself, I was taking medication 6 times a day. I was on benzoprotein, Seroquel, Cymbalta, and Vilify. You name it, I was taking a combination of medicine. And now today I call them joy cocktails. People usually mix Coke and alcohol, but I was having a joy cocktails in that hospital. And I remember just having to go to that window, or the nurse coming into my room saying, Nicole, it's time to take your medicine. And just getting up and thinking, man, I don't want to live this way. God, you've got to get me back. And I think the turning point for me in the hospital was the 3rd week I was in there. I don't know, I think my family noticed the change in my daughter. Even though she was only 3 weeks old, she didn't seem to quite be herself, and there was something missing. And they made a decision to bring her up to the hospital. And I remember sitting out there in that room and looking down, and it was at that point that I realized I was a mother and that I had a child. And looking into her eyes and feeling the warmth and the love and the connection, I knew that I had to fight to get my life back for her, so that I could be the mother that she needed me to be and the wife that my husband needed.
Well, before you go any further on that incredible story about your precious child and how she truly was a turning point for you. I mean, there's something that comes up from the gut of a mom when they get their hands around those babies. But what I want you to do real quick is I want to fast forward, and we'll come back to this part, but I really go from where you were to where you are, and we'll fill in some of the blanks in a minute. So moving forward, share with us how many years now it's been. We'll start with that.
Okay. It's actually it'll be 5 years this February. Madison actually turns 5 on January 25th. So we're excited about that. I actually have been free, and I guess have been an advocate for women who have fertility issues and suffer from depression, probably for the last 4.5 years or so. And it's just been great. And